Welcome to Passengers, where a spaceship is traveling through, you're never gonna guess this, space. It's transporting over 5,000 people who are in super hibernation from Earth to a new planet called Homestead 2. It's on autopilot trying to make its way through an asteroid field or belt, and there is one really big black rock that hits the Avalon while it's going through the asteroid belt and sort of overwhelms its protective shield a bit, causes a little bit of damage, some bugs to happen, some glitches, etc, etc. Most of the systems reset just fine except for one deep sleep hibernation pod that belongs to Mario dude who's called Jim in this movie. It wakes him up and hologram bitch is like,
"It's okay, James. Jim."
Is her fucking up his name intentional to accentuate the fact that he's a bottom tier, basement dwelling, lowest possible tier of passenger? Or is it the ship glitching out? I'm genuinely curious. Doesn't matter though. So Hologram Ho guides him through his wake up process where he was supposed to wake up 4 months before arriving at Homestead 2 and gets guided to his room where the door illuminates, which is f***ing retarded design if you think about it, because imagine multiple people are waking up at the same time and all reaching this hallway at the same time. All the doors will illuminate. No one will know where to f***ing go. The only way to fix that is to wake people up one by one, which they have the time to do that now that I think about it, so I'm retarded. Never mind. He gets naked, freshens up, and recovers from hibernation sickness, then goes to take his first lesson on how to integrate into the Avalon Society or learn about Homestead 2 and how to play nice with other people on the ship for 4 months till they get there or whatever. But when he gets to his first class with the hologram teacher, he doesn't see anyone, and whenever he tries to ask the ship or hologram bitch where everyone is, she just keeps giving him dumbass answers like, "There are more than 5,000 people on the ship. We are all in this together." Fucking useless. He freaks out, runs around the ship a little bit to investigate, and finds out that everyone is still asleep. He's the only one awake. And he goes to the ship's observatory, asks the computer when they'll arrive at Homestead 2, and that's where he finds out that he woke up 90 years too early. Freaks out a little bit more, so he goes over to try and send a message back to Earth, and he does, but the earliest response he'll get from Earth is in 55 years. Also, that message costs him $6 billion to send. Not that that means anything, because he's gonna die anyway before he is able to pay that off. Then he finds a human-like bartender to keep him company named Arthur, and next day he finds out that since he's a bottom tier pleb low strong passenger level, he isn't allowed to have anything other than the most basic coffee and a block of oatmeal from the breakfast bar. But since he's an engineer mechanic dude, he decides to snoop around for a hibernation pod manual, get some tools from the warehouse storage place area, and apply the scientific method, aka fuck around and find out. He fucks around with the pod a bit and gets it to power up and then close on him, but a special procedure fuck me dude, but a special procedure is required to go to sleep, and he doesn't have access to that, can't do it, so that was a bust. He gets to the control center or the crew's quarters where they all sleep and tries to bust through that door to get to them and wake one of them up so they can help him, but he can't get through there because it's too heavily fortified. He tries to do the same with the captain's deck or control center where they steer the ship. I think maybe it's the same place, I don't know, but he also can't get through there because it's too heavily fortified as well. He also notices the ship good shot a couple times, but he doesn't think too much of it, and then goes to Arthur for some bartender wisdom. Arthur tells him to stop worrying about things he can't control and try and live a little, so he does, and indulges in all the worldly pleasures available on the ship. So all the shiply pleasures, like breaking into a luxury suite to stay there instead of his little bunk bed shit shack room, plays a bunch of games and sports, walks around naked for months, eats everything from all the restaurants available to him, and judging by this shot of him with all his food on the fucking bed, I can't help but question how he is not fat, because I'm pretty sure at some point he stopped exercising and doing any sports, so the fact that he's not at least a little bit out of shape is kind of but whatever. So over the course of the year, he went from the denial phase to the bargaining phase, and now he jumped from acceptance to depression. Walking around all the other pods, drunk, he puts on a spacesuit and does a spacewalk, goes out as far as he possibly can with a tether attached to him and cries. A tear rolls down his cheek, which it shouldn't do because he's in outer space. There is no gravity, bro. It should either float off or stay stuck to his eye like the one astronaut that cried in the ISS to show us what happens when you cry in 0G. Or maybe he still does have gravity because he's still attached to the spinny spaceship part that does artificial gravity by utilizing centrifugal forces and space movie science, in which case his tear should fall directly on his visor because the way he's positioned is as if he is laying directly on the ground, and when you cry laying face down on the ground, the tear doesn't roll down the cheek, it falls onto the floor. But anyway, enough over analyzing. He comes back in, his depression phase climaxes and reach a kill yourself peak where he tries to launch himself into outer space without a spacesuit, but he ain't got the balls for it, so he runs back in panicked and trips over a bottle of absolute vodka right in front of a sexy bitch's pod called Aurora Lane. She's the daughter of a super rich world-renowned writer, and she is also a writer herself who got bored of her life and wants to do an adventure so she can write about it, so she decided to go on the strip, spend a year at Homestead 2 and then fly back so she can have an adventure to write about. A very rich white people problem to have, as opposed to his reasons for coming, which are he is poor. There's more nuances than that and more complicated than that for him, but it's same, but different, but still same, whatever. So he gets infatuated with this bitch and keeps reading her books, watching interview vlogs that Homestead made her do before leaving Earth so they can document their lives before and after and shit like that, I guess. That is available for everybody, and he kept watching that shit and listening to her life story and falling in love with her without even meeting her first. Pretty sure he also furiously masturbated over her pod, just saying. Then after perusing around the hibernation pod's manual, he finds out that he can wake her up and questions the morality of doing such a thing with Arthur, asking him questions like, if you were stranded on an island and you could wish someone over and you would no longer be lonely but you'd be ruining their life forever, would you do it? And Arthur's like, I don't fucking know, I'm a fucking robot, dude. I'm designed to serve you drinks and emulate a kind, mildly wise bartender using Facebook bomb quotes as source material. If I could compute morality, I'd probably also be sentient and would have killed off the entirety of the human race a long time ago. Fair enough. He decides not to wake her up, but then he punches a bag, toys around with the idea a bit, shaves his beard, has one last night on her pod, then decides to wake her up. So he fucks around with her pod a bit and she starts waking up and immediately feels super guilty about it. And listen, I don't give a fuck about the morality of it, or what I'm about to say next, which is that you could have picked something better. Now, I'm not saying that Jennifer Lawrence is a bad choice. All I'm saying is it's probably a hotter one, a smarter one out there. I don't know, whatever the fuck floats your boat, buddy. I mean, there's probably 2,500 other women on this ship, you know? No harm in window shopping. Also, in this shot where he's feeling guilty as fuck in his room, there's a fly buzzing around. No scientist worth their salt would let a random element such as a fly into a controlled environment like a spaceship, only in test compartments inside the spaceship. So this is probably a filming/editing mistake. But anyway, he meets her and tells her that they're the only two people awake 89 years early. She freaks out just like he did and tries a couple things he did as well, trying to open this super secure door to the crew to try and wake them up. Tries to get back into her pod, but he's like, been there, done that, sweetheart. Shit don't work. So she gets some rest and he goes over to Arthur and tells him that he woke her up and to keep this a secret between them because she thinks she woke up on accident like him. Next day, the ship experiences more malfunctions. Aurora treats Jim to a gold class breakfast because she is a posh top tier passenger or whatever. She keeps running through ideas on how to fix this, but he keeps shooting them all down because he's tried them all before, and she's like, well, I'm not ready to give up, and gets up leaving her food. Not a single bite was taken. You didn't even take a sip of your fucking coffee, you dipshit. You know how hard this shit is to come by in space? Sit down and eat your food. You're gonna need the energy when you go off to do dumb useless shit, you wasteful bitch. She goes off and tries to open the crew door again with Jeremy Clarkson's favorite tool. Then she speeds runs the 5 stages of grief and starts writing a book about her and Jim's experience stranded on the ship for 89 years. Interviews him and gets to know him a little bit more. They get to know each other a little bit more. She's here for rich people reasons, he's here for poor people reasons. But after a bunch of talking, she gets super bored and he takes her to do all the shiply activities he did before, introduces her to Arthur. She calls him out for being cockless. Then Jim asks her out with a malfunctioning robot he turned into an RC car. She agrees to go out on a date with him, and then on this date they have some food. Then they go out on a spacewalk together, and when they come back, they bone. Yes, they fuck everywhere. They fuck in the bed, they fuck on the table, they fuck in the pool, they fuck in outer space. Maybe not that one, but I'm pretty sure they would have if they could have. Point is, lots of coitus was performed. Then one day he goes over to the place where they store plants and trees and whatnot to plant on Homestead 2 and gets her some flowers from there. Then they go to a big ass window to look at a star they're passing real close to. Shouldn't they be dead, being this close to a star? I know they're in a super advanced protected spaceship, and theoretically speaking, we can technically go 3 million miles close to a star and not be hurt if you're on a protected spaceship, but I think it's kind of bullshit to be honest, and I don't think this is 3 million miles. Then again though, I don't know who the fuck I think I am thinking I can eyeball 3 million miles in a sci-fi movie. I can't even eyeball my goddamn future correctly, so moving on. Another year passes and they celebrate her birthday together, then go to the bar for some champagne, and she's like, there are no secrets between me and Jimmy boy. And Arthur's like, oh really? And Jim's like, yep. So Arthur's dumbass computer brain that operates at ones and zeros and lacks any nuance at all takes that too literally and thinks that Jim told her that he's the one that woke her up, and reveals that to Aurora while Jim goes away to the bathroom to do something by saying something along the lines of, this is great. I remember this time 1 year ago when Jim was deciding on whether or not to wake you up. Say what, buddy? She's in shock. Jim comes back and gets super angry at him and confirms with him that he's the one that woke her up and runs away, fucking pissed, crying and sad and angry, whatever. He goes back to his room guilty as fuck, and how is he accessing his super luxurious suite that he broke into with the peasant ID tag on his wrist? I get being able to pry the door open and force yourself in there, but accessing it with the peasant ID that you can't access good food with? How's that possible? Did he reprogram the armband ID? If so, then why can't he access the good breakfast now? Doesn't matter. She's so pissed at him that she beats him up while he sleeps, and he tries to talk to her, but she keeps avoiding him, so he gets on the PA system, so she's forced to listen to him. He tells her that he's sorry, that he tried not to do it, he regrets it, he was so alone, now he's in love with her, blah 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 blah. She's like, I don't care, fuckface. They share Arthur like a child in divorce, and Jim takes a tree from this plant storage place and plants it in the middle of the ship, sort of opened the metal floor a bit and force fucked it in there. And I can't help but think that this is a terrible fucking idea, because, you know, plants have roots that grow wherever the fuck they want, right? And I'm pretty sure plants and computers don't mix, and this ship is basically a giant computer keeping you alive through space. If vines can climb up walls and trees can grow through cars and concrete, the roots could probably screw up some circuit board somewhere and cause big problems for the ship, you fucking dick brain. Anyway, the ship starts malfunctioning real hard now. Jim gets trapped in an elevator and the breakfast bar throws up cereal onto Aurora. Then a high-ranking crew member gets woken up and asks who the fuck planted a tree on a ship. So they go to meet him, introduce themselves, and catch him up on the situation of the ship and what happened to their pods. 2 pod failures, which is supposed to be impossible and whatnot. However, he is high enough clears to get them into the super fortified control room stuff or flight deck, whatever, and they find out that the diagnostics center or whatever is glitched out and is not showing any data, so they have to go and extract all the diagnostic failure info from each section manually. So he divides his tasks up and sends them off to go do Among Us tasks while he goes and checks out how their pods failed himself, and finds out that Jim's pod had a very simple failure that woke him up, but his pod had a bunch of complex and critical ones, but Aurora's pod was completely fine, and he deduces that Jim woke her up, transitions his judgmental gaze onto him, and Jim tells him that he was alone for a year, was really lonely and shit, and Morpheus is like, I get it, but still, damn. They get back to flight control and compile all their data, but Morpheus is feeling super ill. He figures that it's just hibernation sickness because he had no time to recover at all, and so he has to go rest for a couple hours, and they go rest as well, and then when they wake up, they'll get back to fixing the ship. Jim goes to sleep as well, but Aurora goes for a swim in the pool, and while she's swimming, the ship turns off, the gravity turns off, and she almost drowns in a ball of 0G pool water while Jim floats out of his bed, but Morpheus is so well tucked in, he's ready for the 0G rodeo. How the f*** did he achieve Sheldon Cooper levels of tucking in? Like, bro's better strapped in than a fucking mental patient. Did a personal robot assistant tuck him in or or something? Probably. Whatever though. The ship restarts and the gravity comes back on. The bottle of water drops into the pool. Aurora lives, Jim drops, gets a bloody nose, and Morpheus is still sound asleep. They both go and wake up Gustavo, Morpheus, and go and examine the data of all the faults and find out that a massive power surge 2 years ago was the start of all this because something happened and they don't know what it is, but that's where it started. And the computer predicts that if the current trend of faults keeps continuing, the ship will be destroyed very, very soon. Everything will break and they will all die. So they try and find out the faulty system causing all these issues by examining each system one by one in engineering. But then Gus passes out, so they take him to the med bay and put him in the autodoc, which is, as the name would suggest, an automated doctor. Sees what's wrong with you, fixes it if it can. He gets scanned, gets out, and overrides the computer to tell him all the faults that's wrong with him in detail using his super high ship authority. Checks out what he got. Turns out he has everything. Every single fucking illness known to man, he has it. All caused by his goofy hibernation pod having a bunch of very critical to his life failures. And now he's gonna die in like an hour or two maybe. The autodoc is like,
various treatments are possible. None will meaningfully extend the patient's life. Your end-of-life transition is already underway. These sedatives will alleviate your suffering during these final hours.
am I the only one pissed off by this gay-ass computer giving him super vague statements until the end where he gives him a proper sort of time frame of how long he has to live? Will meaningfully extend his life. Meaningful. What the fuck does meaningful mean, bro? That could mean anything from a couple minutes to a few more hours or maybe a couple more days. Probably not because he got super AIDS, but still. Anyway, dude is barely able to walk out and ask for a minute alone, but they don't have that time because the ship's falling apart. So they go out looking for him and find that he is dressed in full uniform, staring out into space, taking his last breath, giving them his ID to be able to access every place they need to fix the ship, and telling them to take care of each other. He bites the dust while the ship asks for attention like a needy girlfriend. Everything starts going haywire. Even Arthur is malfunctioning, so they disconnect him to avoid him doing more damage to himself. Jim decides that they should look for the fault in engineering by themselves without trying to wake up the crew because it'll take them too long to recover from hibernation sickness. Listen man, I'm kind of 50-50 with you on that one because ever heard of emergency situations and fucking adrenaline? That shit wakes you up real fast. Whatever. They decide they have a better chance at this going at it alone and start checking systems one by one. And when they get to the power plant section, it won't open normally, so they hotwire it open and she immediately gets sucked in because there's a hole in the ship and the computer shut down this room to stabilize the pressure or whatever so shit doesn't keep getting sucked out and they don't lose too much oxygen. And when they force it open, she got sucked in because of the pressure difference. They stop this and plug the hole with, get this, a fucking glass tablet. And then they use some fire extinguisher glue that hardens to plug it completely. No fucking way in hell that is stabilizing and holding the pressure with fucking outer space. Whatever though, they figure out a meteor, asteroid, or whatever space rock did this and they keep tracing the hole it made through the ship all the way back to the reactor room and find the rock's final resting place and that it damaged a piece of the reactor control computer. Thankfully though, there's replacement parts for everything, so they get the replacement part and replace the damaged module with it, and that fixes the reactor's brain or something. But there's another problem. The reactor is not venting automatically for some reason, so a manual override is required. The fucking lever comes up and they manually override it, but it doesn't work, and it tells them that the outer door is jammed, and if they don't open it to cool this bitch down, it's gonna overheat and blow the whole ship apart, blow the whole ship apart. I don't know why I felt the need to emphasize that it's not getting its dick sucked off, that it's getting like exploded. I don't know what's wrong with me. So Jim has to go out and open the outer door manually for it to vent properly, and once he is out of range of the exhaust fumes, she will pull the lever inside and manually override the inside door to like shoot out the flames and whatnot so it vents properly. He laser cuts off a fucking door or hatch as a makeshift heat shield just in case. He puts on a spacesuit and before he goes out, the full effect of Stockholm Syndrome has set in Aurora, or at least some version of it, and she's like,
come back to me. I can't live on the ship without you.
Then she gets back into the super hot reactor room. Jimothy gets to the outside door and tries to open it, but the opening mechanism doesn't work, so he pulls that apart and inserts a tool to open it even more manually. But when he opens it, it turns out to be like spring loaded, so whenever he lets go, it closes back up again, so he finds out that he has to stay there and hold the door open while he vents it. So he turns on his magnetic boots and stands firmly in place, and after a bit of no, you'll die, but it have to be another way, the bitch finally has the balls to pull the fucking lever, and Star-Lord pulls a fucking Thor holding a thing open in outer space while he's getting blasted by fire. And I can't help but think he could have made his body way smaller to fit behind that makeshift blast shield of his to avoid a lot of fucking damage, but he didn't. And eventually he gets overwhelmed by the forces and shot off the exhaust tube. His tether breaks and he gets thrown into the direction of the propulsion system of the ship, so he throws his shield over in that direction to propel himself in the opposite direction, and that works, but his suit has also developed a hole and it's leaking mad amounts of air, so he plugs it. But after he lets go to contact Aurora and tell him that he's okay, but his tether broken, won't be able to make it back to the ship, and never replugs the fucking hole, which is annoying as fuck. Like, dude, you're gonna die, you fucking moron. But whatever, Pussy just gave up on life like that. Unlike her, she's a smart woman, starts running over to the airlock to get to another suit and go fetch him from outer space. While she's running over there, he's all like, I'm sorry for what I did. I wish we could have met in 90 years. What about your house? Still not plugging the goddamn hole. Fucking plug the hole, bro, you stupid ass bitch. My god, I'm so pissed. She gets to a suit, opens the airlock, gets her suit to locate Jim, flies out to him, but her tether's not long enough, but his tether is just in reach, so she grabs it, reels him in, brings him into the ship, drags him over to the autodock. It scans him and tells her he's dead, so she tells the thing to resuscitate him, but that requires a very high authority, so she uses Gus's ID to override it and force it to resuscitate him, and selects all the rest fucking and selects all the resuscitation. Oh my god. And selects all the... I'm gonna kill myself. And selects all the resuscitation options. The whole 9 yards, baby. The thing goes ham on him with defibrillators, injecting him with bull shark testosterone, adrenaline, steroids, Botox, fucking EpiPen. It's using everything, okay? Building a super soldier, just making a new Captain America. And this all works. He breathes, he's alive, good for him. He has a hot bitch kissing him on top of him. What more can a guy want? Next up, they fix up Arthur with some makeup, and Morpheus' body gets shot out into space, giving him a space Viking burial. And Jim finds out that the autodoc has an option to stabilize and suspend, an option that basically turns it into a hibernation pod. But there's only one autodoc, so he gives her the option to use it if she wants, and he will stay alone forever. This is a way for him to say sorry and sacrifice himself and whatnot. She doesn't use it though, decides to stay with him. He proposes to her, they get married, and the movie ends 88 years later when they reach Homestead 2 and the crew wakes up, led by Al Pacino. They find that Jim has went wild with the greenification and planting of shit on the ship. Now that has definitely raped some circuit board somewhere and caused a system to get ruined, because you can't control where the roots grow, what the chickens will peck on, where they'll shit, and all that sort of stuff. Also, what if the reactor needs to vent again? Are they gonna go through that whole shebang again, or did they find a way to fix the automation of it? Doesn't matter. This movie gets 78 capacitors out of 9 chicken nuggets.